Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Excited for today's guest. He is the co-founder of Caffeine Interactive Technologies, and he helps people build websites and web and mobile applications. Excited to be rocking out today with Dustin Devries. Dustin, are you ready to rock?
I am ready. Yeah, thanks for having me, Tom.
No problem. So we always start off here on a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
Sure. Since it's a work from home podcast, I'll probably start with just talking about my experience from leaving my 9-to-5 job. This is back in 2010, so I'd been kind of doing some stuff, moonlighting, doing some side projects, and while I was still working a 9-to-5 job in the semiconductor industry. And then, back in 2010, left. And this also maybe gets into some other things, like some failures and things like that I went through as well. But just going through that process of going out on my own and the uncertainty, but then, being able to survive through that and come out the other side and be able to build a successful business and be able to support myself working from home. It's been a really, really great run.
Yeah, congratulations on that. I did it too. It's one of those things where we don't learn in school how to start a home business. So that's why I hope this podcast is going to be useful to people, right?
That's right.
So now along that journey, there's, some good notes like you just mentioned. However, not everything goes as planned, and we hit some bad notes along the way. So I'm wondering, can you share something that didn't go as planned and maybe how we can avoid it or recover from it?
Yeah, sure. So I'll go back to that same point in time when I was working on some things on the side. I was still working my full-time job. I started getting into affiliate marketing, and I actually, it was one of those things where I started to see some success. I thought like maybe this was going to pan out. And actually, when I left my job, it was to try to make that work. And unfortunately, it didn't work. And so, through all that, I had to go through this process of like figuring out, well, how are we going to pay the bills? Because I just left my job, and like the affiliate marketing venture that I was engaged in wasn't going to quite pay the bills. And so, I guess my takeaways from that really were, one, like not to get too married to an idea. I think I've tried to try to force that for too long, and maybe should have pivoted to something else. And two, just to be flexible, and try to look at, those things as like learning experiences, because I got a lot of great value out of that. First off, being the first business I've run, but also the experience I got, from building affiliate marketing websites and things like that, all were inputs into my next venture, which was starting my business and building websites and web and mobile apps.
Right on. Hey, we have a similar path. I tried to do some affiliate marketing stuff as well back
Oh, really?
in the day. Yeah, and I barely made any money at all at that.
Yeah.
I ended up doing some multi-level marketing as well. I did end up making quite a bit of money in that. But yeah, all those experiences were stepping stones, I think, to learning some pieces that you end up putting together later on. So so it's very, very cool that you did that. Now, I do have a question though. So now, how do you know the difference between something that isn't going to work and something that is going to work?
Well, yeah, that is kind of the $1 million question, literally, right? I think that it's tough. I think sometimes you have to trust your instincts. I think also you need to, setting up systems like, having metrics, KPIs, key performance indicators, if you will, looking at the financial side of things for sure. I'm not, all the different like cash flow, whatever, different financial documents and stuff you can look at, but really just being honest with yourself. And I think like one of the problems I know I've had, I think every person who starts their own business has, is sometimes you're a little afraid to look at the numbers. You're a little afraid to look at the accounting. You're a little afraid to look at the KPIs and see how you're performing, because like the truth is sometimes disappointing, and you want to stay positive. And so because of that, you tend to try to bury that sometimes. I know I've been really guilty of that, but just being honest with yourself and saying, you know what, if it's not working, it's better to know now than it is 3 years from now, right? And that was my problem. I spent, 6 years probably pursuing this affiliate marketing dream. And yeah, we made a little extra money, and it had some promise, and there's a lot of good takeaways from it. But at the end, it was, I would have to classify it as a failure. But that was all part of my, venture into my future and what I was going to do next.
Oh man, that's such a good answer. Like, because you're right. I mean, a lot of times
Mhm,
there's like some sort of emotional investment into this
mhm.
idea that you have. But if you take the emotions out of it and you take a step back and you just look at like key performance indicators, you just look at the numbers of how much time you're putting into it versus the return that you're getting out of it, you can do
Mhm.
some math and decide whether this is something that's going to work or not. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure you were getting something out of it, but I'm I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure the way you looked at it is like, okay, I would need to spend this crazy number of hours in order to get enough money to pay my bills.
right. Yeah, that was, and also I think just looking at the trends, I think one of the things that happened to us, we were doing affiliate marketing. So we were doing like a bunch of deal sites and things like that, bargain shopping sites. And so one of our big affiliates was Amazon. And at least back then, they sort of had this policy where if you got labeled as a deal site, they would actually change your commission structure. So rather than getting like 7% commission or whatever it was, I can't remember the numbers back then, they would basically like cut your commission down where you get like half of a percent or 1%. It basically killed all of our Amazon revenue. And that was probably like at least a third of our revenue. And so you start looking at that trend and you're like, okay, well, I'm building this thing up and it's going up, it's going up. Well, now something catastrophic has happened, right? That one was really clear to point out like what causes Amazon cutting us off. But there's certainly other cases where like maybe like sales are going down. And is it a cyclical thing? Is it something where, because not all growth is always linear. A lot of times it's a stair step. Sometimes you take a step back and then move forward and that sort of thing. Is it just that, or is it really more of a downward trend, like maybe losing like opportunities not there, or something has shifted in the market? And so I think those are just big things to be aware of. But yeah, I think every venture is going to be different, in my opinion. They're going to have different KPIs, different things you may be looking at, but also, like I said, trusting your intuition, I think is big too.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's fast forward a little bit to your current business and let's talk a little bit about the band, about putting the right people around you. And so, how do you go about getting the right people into your business?
It's we do put a lot of effort into hiring, and I think that's one of the big things about working from home. It's really a blessing for those of us that can really thrive and do it well. It can really be a curse for some who can't, and some people just, I really respect people who I talk to, and they're like, I just can't work from home. Like, there's too many distractions, there's too much going on. I've got kids at home. I got whatever's going on. I just can't do it, and I've got to go into an office. And so maybe they go get a co-working space, or yeah, I know guys I used to work with in the semiconductor industry, where even though they're all working from home, they still have the opportunity to go into the office when they want to. And so they will. They'll go into the office and work a couple days a week at least, just because they know they need that. They need that structure. And so I think there's that element of like making sure the people, like when we hire people, every 100% of our team is remote. So making sure we're hiring the right people that are comfortable staying from home. And that's difficult to completely figure out. We're mainly hiring software developers, and we actually hire, our team is global. So we have some developers out in the Philippines. We actually have some developers in Bolivia. But when we hire anyone in any of those regions or really anywhere, it's a lot of just trying to figure out, okay, well, I feel like you're a good self-starter. Can you handle what needs to be done? Also, another thing that I've looked at with hiring that I think, to me, it's kind of like a little bit of a hiring hack, I guess I can call it, is that we don't typically go to job boards and post jobs. I mean, we've hired some people that way, but more often than not, what we do is we'll go on LinkedIn and we'll prospect for people based on certain search terms. So we use like Sales Navigator, for example, and go on and look for people who maybe have like PHP experience. We're hiring like a PHP developer, WordPress developer, look for keywords like that, and then go out and prospect to them, like actually reach out to them, make a connection request and say, hey, we've got this job, wondering if you're interested. Because typically they're already in another job, but maybe, if you reach them at the right time, you may be able to convince them to come over versus, it's not always true that people who are looking for jobs who aren't currently employed are inferior employees, obviously, but sometimes that can be the case. Like maybe it's someone who is working from home and they've struggled with that, and so because of that, they haven't been able, they've had a hard time holding a job, or there's been other challenges that have come up. And so That's one thing we do is go out like LinkedIn and places like that and prospect. And from there, it's all about we've tried to automate the process as much as possible. So doing things like setting up some Google Forms to have some initial like interview questions and get people to rank themselves on certain things that we expect them to have experience in, just kind of get a rough idea, and also give them a chance to give us some input on why they think they're qualified for the position. Then we get into engagement of actually talking about the position, get on a call, and sometimes we'll even have them do like a small little project, just like a sample. We'll pay them for it, and to see if it works out well, see how long they take to do it, that sort of thing. And then from there, we have a pretty good idea. And so I think that process is not a perfect process, but I think by building that process, it's helped us to hire a really good team.
Yeah, I think those are some really good strategies. I mean, I think you're onto something though, finding people that already have a job.
Mhm.
Because I mean, you're right. I mean, if someone already has a job, well, then that they're employable, and that they're
Yeah.
whoever they're working for is happy with them at that time, and you might be able to cut through some stuff. And of course, having some demo jobs and stuff like that is a good idea as well, because I think that's kind of a risk when you're hiring somebody, is that oftentimes you'll end up putting all this time into hiring somebody and then finding out that they can't really do what you wanted them to do. So having some demo jobs might be a good idea. But I want to stress what you said though. You kind of have to pay them for it. I
Mhm.
think people kind of try to skimp out, and maybe I can get them to do a free job for to
Yeah.
try to work for my business and stuff like that. But it's not treating people the right way, I don't think, right?
I don't think so either. And also, I mean, you have to be aware of like what it is you're hiring and how competitive it is. Like I was talking to someone the other day who was looking to hire someone who was going to be like a dev manager for her organization. And, so she was planning on paying this person, like I forget how much it was. It's like, well into the six figures, $150,000 a year or something like that. And so it's like, well, because we're compensating them so well and it's like big salary, like expect them to come and sit through a full day of interviews. We expect them to do like some sample projects for free. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I understand that argument because it's such a highly compensated job that you feel like they owe that to you. But at the same time, it's such a competitive space that, if I'm out there looking for a job, because my background is in technology and building software, and I see someone, I think back to college, like I remember I was interviewing, just going to all the job fairs and stuff back in, this is a long time ago, right? Back in the 90s, 99, 2000. I remember I had a job with the company I ended up going and working for, like they had given me an offer. There's another company that was going to bring me in for an interview, but then they wanted me to do like a presentation in front of a bunch of people. They had all these other things they wanted. And I was just like, I don't even want to, like, I actually didn't go to the interview. I decided to cancel it because I was like, I don't want to go through all this garbage of putting together a presentation and presenting in front of a bunch of people. I'm also a little bit antisocial sometimes. So like getting in front of an audience is not my favorite thing in the world to do, for better or worse. So it was like a really easy out for me to be like, I've already got a good job. Like I think this other job I've got an offer on is what I was going to probably take anyways. And that just solidified it. And I'd never went to the interview. And it's like, how many people did they lose out on because they had that process? Now it's a big enterprise level company.
Yeah.
I'm a small business. And so I think it's even harder for us if we set those expectations on people.
Yeah, it's too many hoops to jump through, and especially
Yeah.
considering the fact that, I mean, if you're looking for somebody who's top, like top of the top, the best of the best,
Mhm.
you got to think that they're going to be interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them.
Exactly.
So,
That's
so
a
the
really good point.
yeah, so the impression that you're leaving on them, or that you want to leave on them, is that you want to make yourself look as attractive as possible because you want that top talent. You don't want somebody who's going to jump through a bunch of hoops because they got nowhere else to go, right?
Yes, exactly. And then if you're doing it right, where you have some kind of demo work as you described it, then you can certainly help mitigate your risk on that as well. I definitely understand concern about the risk, but it's just that's the nature of today. And especially, it's already hard enough trying to hire someone who's going to come into an office every day from 9 to 5, but then throwing in the complexity of working from home, which again, I mean, I'm a big advocate of working from home. I know you are too, obviously, but it can be a real challenge. It's an extra variable that you have to try to hedge against, and that's all part of the process.
Yep. So now let's talk a little bit about the tools and the instruments that we use in our businesses. How do you approach that? What kinds of tools are you using?
It's interesting because we've done a lot of different things. Like I think one of the big challenges we had and I know your experience with building websites and software, you may deal with some of these same challenges. I don't know, but we had a hard time managing our retainers. Like we typically with our customers, we will charge a retainer, and it may be based on a fixed price project or it may be an hourly kind of project, but still nonetheless, we work through prepaid retainers. And the idea behind that is we can give our customers a little bit of a discount with that, but on the flip side, we don't have to turn into like collection agencies, right? And go and try to get people to pay their bills. So it just worked out better for us working that model. But the problem with that was managing all those retainers. We never found a good software solution. So we actually built our own system that we use internally. We've talked about like maybe branching that out and maybe marketing it one day. I'm not sure what the market is for that. I don't know if people have the same kind of problems that we have with retainers and billing. But that was one thing that we built internally, talking about tools. There's certainly other tools we use too, outside of that tool, it's doing time tracking, it's doing our retainer management, it's integrating with Jira. So Jira is another tool that we use quite a bit for all of our project management, for managing developers and tasks and all the different projects that we have going on. And then me personally, one of the tools I love and I use every day is Trello. And the reason why I love Trello is because, here several years ago, I tried to adopt, I don't know if you're familiar with the Getting Things Done process. David Allen, you ever heard of?
I've heard of it before, yeah.
Okay. So, the idea there is like trying to process everything that comes across your desk. So whether it's someone stopping by with a conversation, someone calling you on the phone, maybe it's an email, maybe it's a Slack message, I don't know, whatever it might be. Like there's things you need to process, and some things are just like, can you reply to this email and it's going to take you 10 seconds. Well, those kind of things you just knock off right away. That's the idea behind Getting Things Done. Like if something's going to take you a minute or less, just go ahead and do it, because it takes more brain power to go archive it and set a reminder to go do that thing than it is just to go ahead and do it. But if it's doing more than that, then you need a system to be able to process that and try to remember what you've got to work on. And so I've been using this process for a while, but I've tried different to-do apps and things like that to make it work. But I ended up adopting Trello. And one of the things I really like about Trello is that I can actually create swim lanes. So I have a swim lane for today, and it's all the things I need to do today. I've got another swim lane for tomorrow. I have another swim lane for 2 days from now. Another swim lane for this week, another swim lane for this month, this quarter, this year. And so I can take all my tasks and I can sort of organize them in a way that I know what I need to get done today. I know the things I can push off till tomorrow, whatever the case may be, and kind of manage that by having all these individual swim lanes I can drag and drop things in between. And so that's been really powerful for me. And then also just the fact that, probably a lot of your audience have used Trello, maybe not. The documentation as well, like even like for personal things, like if I've got a doctor's bill and I need to call and like deal with insurance or something, to get them to pay for it. And I'm like documenting like the phone calls I made. So I have a task, like take care of this bill. So this is, again, personal stuff. It isn't necessarily business work stuff, but I can have, ability to document all that within the task. And I think it's been a really good solution for me and what I do. And I have it on my phone. I've got it, have it bookmarked on my browser. So wherever I am, if I ever have something that crosses my path that I need to take care of, I can immediately jot it down in Trello and make sure I take care of it. And, that's, again, part of the Getting Things Done process, but also leveraging Trello to manage that.
Nice. Well, so coincidentally, I use Trello as well in the exact same way that you just said.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never met someone like you. Okay, that's awesome.
I've never called it a swim lane, but I probably will now.
Okay.
But
I get that from Jira. I think Jira calls them swim lanes. Okay. So I just adopt that terminology.
I've never used Jira, but yeah, I use Trello, I use Slack, and I use Harvest for time tracking. Harvest is actually a pretty cool app. But I actually just I just signed up for Monday.com yesterday because it looks like that might do all those three things all in one. So
oh, really?
I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, I would love to hear, because I'm, that's one of those things. I like the process. I like being able to know what's on my plate, what my expectations are each day, be able to manage my team as well. And so, it's one thing I'm constantly improving. And I won't be surprised if, 2 years from now, I'm not using Trello anymore. I'm on something else, because there's something else that comes along that's better. But
Yeah.
yeah, let me know. I'd be curious.
Yeah, well, it seems to be pretty like, so what I like the most about Trello, and I think you mentioned it, is those cards are just so easy to move around. Like, oh, I didn't get
Mhm.
that today, move it over to tomorrow. No
Yeah.
problem. Like, really easy to do that. But what I don't like about it is that you only see the one label, and it's
Mhm.
very like you have to click on it to actually go see the rest of the stuff. Whereas with Monday.com, it seems as though you still have the ability to move things around, but you have got a full line and you can add as many columns as you want with
Mhm.
anyway. So we'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That sounds good.
Because things sometimes these applications promise more than they can pull off. uh, but so far so good on that one. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Now what about you mentioned that we have similar backgrounds. We have you know programming backgrounds, I guess. And they don't really teach all this business stuff. And so we end up having to learn it somewhere. And I'm wondering, how do you go about, learning those things? Like, did you hire coaches and mentors? Do you participate in masterminds? Like, how do you get your information?
Yeah, I mean, it's a variety of tactics. I mean, yes, I like to read. I love reading business books. Before the podcast we were chatting, I was talking about listening to a lot of audiobooks and Audible. And I go for a daily walk. And so when I'm out for my walk, I tend to a lot of times I'll listen to like a business book, and so I'm consuming a lot of content that way. I've gone back and forth on hiring coaches and consultants. Being a software guy, so our business, I'm one of the co-founders, the other co-founder being my wife. So my background is in building software, so software development. Her background is in requirements, and she's worked as a product manager in her former life. And so she brings that experience of being able to build requirements, wireframing, mock-ups, product strategy, all that sort of thing. So we have a good mix when it comes to building things. What we don't have a good mix on is the marketing and sales side of things. And so sales, I think, that's one of those things. Once you get someone on the phone, if you can build some good uh, good discussions and be authentic with them and honest and build some trust, authority maybe with them, it comes pretty naturally. But like the marketing side, I think has been really tough for us. So in our early days of starting the business, we actually did hire a marketing company. I thought, you know what, we're not good at marketing. We're going to go hire somebody to do all this for us. And I remember we were paying them like $5,000 a month, and it was just like every month it'd be like zero leads, zero leads. And after about 6 months, I thought like at first, like, okay, we just part of this is on us because we got to figure out like what the right focus is for marketing. We can't expect them to understand our business and our customers as well as us. And so we need to give them, if we're giving them garbage, like that garbage in, garbage out kind of thing, right? So if we're not giving them good data to see their process, they're not going to be successful. In the end, we ended up getting rid of them because like that was the problem. We did not know how to market. And so we weren't giving them good data. So I don't even blame them, even though we spent a lot of money. We spent $30,000-$40,000 on them, which is a hell of a lot of money, especially when you're a new startup company. But we did learn from that. And I think one of the things that I took away from that is that and I've read this since then in several different books that I've enjoyed, is that if you're a business owner, like the number one thing you have to do is sell. If you're a great chef, you decide to open a restaurant, well, you're no longer just a great chef. You're a guy selling the great food that you cook, right? And so that was one thing that I had to learn. And I just, try to apply that to our business of saying, okay, well, I don't have to it doesn't mean I have to do everything. I've got to learn it like in excruciating detail. I need to know enough so that when I hire people to help with that I'm seeding that process with good data, and I'm aware of the process enough that I can manage it and I can know whether they're helping me or not. And so tying that into your question about like masterminds and consultants, like, yeah, we actually have hired, I've gone through some training courses, paid training courses, but we actually hired a consultant team that helps us with all of our sales process, sales and marketing. And we've been with them for about 6 to 8 months now, and it's been really, really good. Like we've been able to get some business. We've learned a lot about different things like prospecting and cold outreach, which we've never really done before. I hired our first sales development representative to go out and prospect, do cold calling and cold prospecting. He's been with us for about 5 months now. So we have that. And then, yeah, the mastermind thing I think is huge as well, because, you're talking to other business owners or other people that are, if you find the right mastermind where there's some good commonality between all of you, then I think, you're going to naturally benefit from that, because you're all going to be sharing ideas and tips. And, it's going to make you better, because you can go to them with your problems, right? If you've got a mastermind of 4 people, well, I may have a problem. And sometimes, when you're running a business, you don't see the forest through the trees. You get too tunnel visioned on the thing, but you can go to your mastermind group and lay out the problem, and then getting a different perspective. Sometimes getting that perspective from the outside is huge. And so I'm a big advocate of masterminds.
Yeah. I'll make another analogy when it comes to the sales aspect. So, as a musician, when I realized that I'm actually not selling music as a performer, I'm actually selling beer at a bar. That was a huge deal. And I think that the same thing happens with a business. I mean, you're, like you say, you're a website developer. Well, you're not, you have to figure out what it is that you're actually selling. And on top of that, you are a salesperson. You can't just show up, play your music and leave, because there's no place to show up to in the first place. You had to go out there and find some place to play in the first place. And so the same thing happens with business. You really do need to, and I think that's something that I think their school systems need to figure out. Like, we need to be teaching sales in schools. It's the most valuable course you could possibly take is something in sales. I mean, even if you decide to work for a company for the rest of your life, you're still going to have a hard time selling your ideas in a board meeting if you have no sales skills, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And even just selling yourself for the next job, the next promotion too, right? I mean, all that plays in. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of that too. I think that we are in a society where you really have to do that. And people are, it's like the whole cliche thing. We're so interrupted with social media and our phones and all that, but it's true. And so to be able to stand out from all that and be able to, find a way to get in front of the right people and make your point, whether it's boardroom presentation or whether it's trying to, get that promotion that you want. Like it's huge. But then on the flip side, it's like, well, it'd be good to teach it in school, but then maybe the flip side of that is maybe this is our unfair advantage, right? Because we know this, it's not taught regularly, so we can pass it on to our kids, right? So then they have this like unfair advantage. There's maybe that like silver lining to it, but I agree with you. It's probably something that would be really good to have in the education system.
Yeah, well, from my knowledge of the education system, it was typically built to help companies hire factory workers, and so it wasn't in their advantage to have a worker who could negotiate his own raises. So I'm sure that's probably why it's omitted. But moving into the new world, yeah. But that's where we come into play, and where the nowadays with the internet and with the way things are working, you can find sales coaches just about everywhere. And so yeah, I agree with you that would be one of the first places you'd want to look. And I also love your idea about masterminds. So how did you find your mastermind?
There's actually another podcast I started listening to back in, gosh, it was a long time ago, maybe 2010, 2011, Tropical MBA. And so they're, it's a group of entrepreneurs that they travel the world and run their business remotely. That I enjoyed the podcast back then. I joined their community called the Dynamite Circle. And so just from there, kind of got some ideas on all of these things. And so they have, they actually have within their community, they have a mastermind. I think they call it like Mastermind Rush or something like that, where once a year you can go, and if you're not a mastermind, join a mastermind. And in my case, I wasn't a mastermind. We had a couple people drop off, and so it's just basically me and another guy. And so we went to them and said, we'd like to add a couple more people to our mastermind. I think 4 is usually a good number. I guess it depends on your format and maybe the topics, what you're trying to discover in the mastermind. But in our case, I think 4 was a really good number. So we added a couple through that. That's where we went. But I know there's other resources out there. Even if you just, I mean, I've got friends who have started their own businesses, and if I didn't have anywhere else to turn, I would even consider like saying, hey, why don't we all, we're friends, but we could still get on a call, once a week or once a month and just chat about business and see if there's anything we're learning that could be applicable to anyone else. Like that's a reasonable place to start. But I think there's definitely some good resources. I'm not aware of all of them, but I know there's resources out there to find mastermind groups.
Yeah, it's a good place to start for sure. So it's time for your guest solo. Tell me what's exciting in your business.
There's a few things. We've been building websites and web and mobile apps. It starts to get a little bit commoditized sometimes, and so we're trying to find ways to stand out. And so here's a few things that we've been focused on lately. One is on the app development side. So I think one of the big problems people have with building any kind of web or mobile app is just the cost. It's so expensive to build an app, and certainly there's things that are coming along to make that process easier. But if you really want to build an iPhone app, you're probably looking at least $50,000 or more. Probably in some cases up to $100,000, depending on the types of features and stuff that you want. So one of the things we've been really pushing and exploring is the idea of building prototypes. And so you're taking something like Envision. It's a product that's another tool. Go back to the tool topic that we use. You can take mock-ups. You build mock-ups and create clickable hotspots on those mock-ups, and you can make them, like a mobile interface essentially, to where you can basically build what kind of appears as like a functioning app. You can actually pull it up on your phone, and it shows up just like an app. It's a web-based experience, but the way it shows up on your phone, it looks like you're in the app. So you can actually go and build a prototype to try to capture your app idea, your concept, and then you go pitch that to investors, or if you have customers, you're trying to figure out what the audience is for that. You can go do those things, and it's like an order of magnitude less than building the app. So like the analogy I use is like, okay, or the scenario I use is like, say it costs $80,000 to build an app. You might be able to go build a prototype for $8,000, let's say, maybe less than that even. So it's like 10% of the cost of the app, and then you can go get feedback, because usually they only take 2 or 3 weeks to build. Then you go get feedback. Once you build that, you can go get feedback. You can find out from your customers, your prospects, whoever it is, get some feedback on that, and then decide, all right, like, is this something I want to pursue? Do I need to pivot? Do I need to change things up? But you're only out $8,000 instead of $80,000 trying to build your MVP, your minimum viable product. And then on top of that, whatever you're building, whatever assets you're building for that prototype, those are assets you would have built for your MVP anyways. So what we find is, like, when you build a prototype, about 75 to 80% of that cost would have gone into your MVP anyway. So if you're building an $80,000 app, you pay $8,000, for a prototype. Well, $6,400 of that you would recoup when you go and build your MVP, and possibly even more, because you may find out stuff about your idea that didn't resonate, and you go change it. So that's one of the things we're really focused on, is prototype stuff. I think it's a really cool way to hedge your bets. It's like options trading in a way. Like you pay less and kind of get a concept out there and see if it works. That, and also the other thing that is kind of an unsexy, so to speak, thing within the web development industry is website maintenance. We do a lot of building websites, but I think there's a lot in terms of just website maintenance and support. You got things like, at least here in the US, the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, that, starting to hear more and more about people getting sued because their website isn't ADA compliant. There's like GDPR, which was a big one here starting a couple of years ago. HIPAA compliance if you're building some kind of medical based app or website. So there's a lot of things like that I think on the website maintenance side you can provide. If someone already has an existing website, go provide support and maintenance to maintain some of these things. So that's something we've been kind of focused on lately, and doing more outreach to prospects about handling their website maintenance and support, instead of just always going with like, hey, would you like a new website? It's like, talk more on the maintenance side. Those are probably the 2 things that have been front and center for us.
Love it. Okay, so how do we find out more then?
You can reach out to, if you go to our website, it's just caffeineinteractive.com, all one word. Or you can email me. I don't mind sharing my direct email address. It's dustin@caffeineinteractive.com. And yeah, if anyone wants to chat about any of the things we talked about, even if it's not necessarily about like us working together, but you want to talk about my workflow with how I use Trello or something like that. Yeah, I'm happy. I love talking about those kind of things. I like to geek out on stuff. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, I love to geek out too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Dustin. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you so much.
Cool. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.